like to come forward and say a few things before we vote on your renomination?
I really enjoyed it. It's a lot of fun.
If you don't mind coming forward so that we can hear you.
I was going to say, I've really enjoyed, like I said, my wife is a member, my kids are all members, so I really appreciate what y'all do for the tribe, and I've really enjoyed working on the board and helping out. So,
Anybody have any questions or comments for Mr. Crawley? Thank you for being here today. Mr. Baker?
No, go ahead.
Thank you for being here with us today. Appreciate your coming here. We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of Mr. Crawley's renomination to the Trust Authority, I'll signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 3 is the renomination of Terry Daniels to the Trust Authority. Is Mr. Daniels here, Vicki?
That would be Miss Daniels, and yes,
I
she
am
is.
so sorry. Ms. Daniels. Did you want to say a few words before?
Again, we would just like to, this is a renomination for Miss Daniels. She served on the board in the past, and we just submit her renomination to you for approval today.
I have a motion for approval of Mrs. Daniels.
I think to be approved.
Mr. Baker. Moved in second. Now any discussion on Ms. Daniels? Terry, would you like to come forward? Say a few things, few words.
I'm Terry Daniels. I've been with the board since inception. I work for First National Bank, Sallisaw. I've been with the bank 28 years. I'm the community bank president of the 2 Sallisaw locations.
That's good.
I'm a mother and a grandmother. Mother of 4 and grandmother of 4.
Oh my goodness.
I am a board member of the Sallisaw Sallisaw Improvement Corporation, Chamber of Commerce, the Sequoia BPW, and other organizations I can't think of right now.
Busy lady.
I'm nervous.
Does anybody have any questions or comment for
I'd like to say, are you Cherokee?
I'm half. On my mother's side, she was a Scot.
Any other questions, comments? Guess not. Thank you for being here today. Have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor of the renomination of Mrs. Daniels, signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 4 is the nomination of Gerald Wofford to the editorial board of directors. Is Mr. Wofford here, Vicki?
Yes, he is.
Okay. You want to start, Vicki?
Mr. Walker's credentials are attached, should have been included in your packet. If you have any questions of him, I'll let him address the council, but we're pleased to nominate him to the editorial board of directors.
Mr. Wofford, you want to come forward? And thank you for being here.
Well done. I appreciate your time here this afternoon. It's always been my pleasure to be a part of this editorial advisory board, being such a unique position that was created a few years ago to be able to serve the Cherokee Nation in this manner. Newspaper and the media is part of my life. It's what I've done for a very long time. And again, as I mentioned, to be able to serve the Cherokee Nation in this capacity is quite an honor. So to be reconsidered and renominated is a pleasure.
Any questions or comments, Mr. Wofford? Got a motion, do I have a second?
Second.
Moved in second. Any further discussion or questions? Thank you for being here, Mr. Wofford. All in favor of the nomination of Mr. Wofford, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 5 is a nomination of Deacon Turner to the Education Corporation Board. He isn't here, is he?
Deacon Turner is not present, but we do have Margaret Riney from CNEC to address the council if you have any question in that regard.
Mr. Baker?
Yes, I've known Deacon for some time, and he serves on various boards. And as the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation grows with various requests and legacy, I think he'd be a very good addition because of his financial advisor experience. And I move for his approval.
Second. Moved and seconded. Any discussion or questions of Mrs. Riney while she's here? You want to come forward?
My name is Raymond.
Raymond.
Margaret Raymond.
I got everybody's name mixed up. You want to come forward, Ms. Raymond?
Yes,
Thanks for being here.
I don't know if anyone would like information about the Cherokee Nation Education Corporation. I suppose you all know about it, but it's one of the first tribally chartered nonprofit corporations, and we work to promote educational opportunities for tribal members, language, culture, and history. And we'd be very pleased for Mr. Deacon Turner to be appointed to our board.
Thank you. Any questions or comments for Mrs. Raymond? All in favor of the nomination of Mr. Turner signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Margaret. Item 6 is a confirmation for the nomination of Mike McKeever as the Cherokee Nation Appeals Board.
He was unable to be here today. He had a prior commitment in Tulsa County, but we do have a representative from the EAB here to address any questions or concerns that you may have.
I'll entertain a motion for Mr. McKeever. Is it McKeever? McKeever. McKeever. Moved and seconded. Any discussion? Yes. Yes.
I have known his family, and he's originally from Sequoia County, and I think he's doing a great job, and I think that it would be good to put him back on.
Yeah.
I have a question, Vicki, and maybe you can answer this for me, or how many times has this EAP board been used?
I think we're going to have Laura come and address that. It's been in place for a number of years, but how frequent
Yes.
is what your question is, right?
You want to come forward?
The board was established in 1996 when the legislation was passed for the board then. We went through several years there that we had several appeals during the year. Over the last couple of years, the participation or the appeals filed before this board has decreased. But they also hear tarot appeals from tarot vendors. And that legislation passed in 2005, I think. We had one case filed, and it was a tarot appeal. So the board is not...
So they're not swamped all the time? That was my question.
No.
And it's good to know that they do hear the appeals. I didn't know that.
Yeah, that was new legislation, and the Employee Appeals Board became the Administrative Appeals Board with that legislation.
All right, thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All in favor of the nomination of Mike McKeever signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Next is a confirmation of Ralph King. Oh, I'm sorry.
Speaker, I have one question.
Okay.
The resolution calls it the Cherokee Nation Employee Appeals Board. Is that...
That actually needs to be corrected, yes.
So I move that we correct it to the administrative.
Second.
This new one. It is corrected on the...
I gave you, I handed out a new one with the corrected title, but when I did my agenda, they had this title on there, so it is corrected.
Same for Mr.
Thank you.
King.
And it's the same for him, yeah. There's the one in there that's corrected.
Item 7 is the nomination of Ralph King Jr. Are you doing that? Okay.
Actually, I believe this is a renomination for Mr. King. I believe he served on the board for a good many years, so he'd like to come and address the council. Again, his credentials and information has been attached in your packet, but he served on the board for a number of years, and I'll let him address the council.
Do I have a motion for the approval of Mr. King?
Question first.
Okay.
Have you or have you ever been Cherokee?
Me? Been Cherokee my whole life.
I'll move for approval.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion or question of Mr. King? Any other discussion? You want to say a few words?
Well,
Oh,
only,
he's a lawyer. Of course he does.
without getting me started up. No, I would just simply like to introduce myself to the newest members of the council here. I know many of these faces, but I see a few new ones that I haven't had the privilege of getting to know. My name is Ralph King. I'm an attorney in private practice in Stillwell. I'm in my 12th year of practice there, and that's my home. That's where I was born, and that's where I probably plan on staying. I've been involved with Cherokee Nation in various levels over the years, and this is just the latest in my attempt to serve do my part to serve the Cherokee people. It's been a privilege to serve on this board for the last 4 years. For those of you that may not understand exactly what the board does, we hear essentially termination appeals from employees that feel like they were wrongfully terminated from Cherokee Nation. That's our principal area of jurisdiction, but recently, as Laura pointed out, our jurisdiction has been expanded to include appeals from taro vendors, either vendors that are agreed with decisions by the taro committee or that have been denied taro certification. So we believe that this board is a very essential and vital part of the administrative wheels in a system that ensures due process to all of its members. And so, again, I'm very pleased to be a part of that. If you have any kind of questions, I'd be happy to try to answer them for you.
Questions, comments? Thank you, Ralph, for being here.
Thank you, Meredith. Good day.
All in favor of the nomination of Mr. King signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign. And that is the Cherokee Nation Administrative Appeals Board. Jay. Okay, item 8 is a confirmation of Shannon Fisher as on the Gaming Commission.
Move for approval.
Second.
Moved and seconded. She's at that National Commissioners Conference,
Yes.
isn't she?
In attendance with Jamie Hummingbird at a national gaming conference, so.
Okay. I've got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Yes, Ms. Fulbright?
Yes. I've known Shannon all of her life. She's from Sequoia County. She is Cherokee. She attended the Haskell Institute. I served on the gaming commission with her. She's a businesswoman. She's got experience in gaming. Most important, she is honest, has integrity, and you just can't go wrong by reaffirming her.
Well, thank you. Since she's from Sequoia County, can I withdraw mine?
All in favor of this nomination of Ms. Fisher signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. That's the last one, isn't it? All right. Now we're down to report, or back up to reports. Ms. Wright, Marshal Service.
We submitted our report in writing earlier, so if you want me to go through it, I will, or if you have questions, I can answer those.
Thank you for getting those to us early. Thank you for getting those to us early. Any questions, comments from Ms. Wright? Mr. Baker?
Anything else you want us to know besides what's in the report?
Well, I do know that because we've intensified some activity in Adair County because we were having some issues, that there's also been some citizens who have asked for council to inquire about why we're always there and are we picking on one family more than the other, and I would say no to all of that. But I would encourage you, if you really want to get out and be with what we do, if you want to ride with one of our patrolmen just to see where they go and what they do and what their processes are. The lieutenant over patrol is Danny Tanner, and you can call the office and get hold of him, or I can give a cell phone number, and he can arrange for you to ride with an officer, so that way you see where they're going and what they're doing. Other than that, I've made plans to go down and talk to a couple of those people directly, face to face, to see if we can resolve any issues that they might have.
You have liability insurance? Just kidding.
They'll be on the side of the road somehow.
No.
So if you want to do that, we're we're available to let you ride with an officer and see how they go and where they go and what they do and what their demeanor is. Everybody's different, you know. So that's an opportunity I'd encourage you to take part in if you want.
Any questions or comments from Ms. Wright? Yes, Mr. Snell?
Up at Oaks, Ms. Wright, there's a housing addition called the Redbird Housing Addition. It's right across the line into Cherokee County. Across the road is Delaware County. You know, I have a lot of complaints that there's a lot of drug activity there.
We actually, and I know that Oaks is sort of Delaware, Cherokee, and everywhere else, but with that Mays County pilot project that we have going up out of, it's centered in Cherokee Heights, but it's all of Mays County. We have asked those officers that's working with those referrals systems on the drugs to do both Mays and Delaware County. So I will encourage them to check into Oaks. I know that we're back into the school system. We were not doing the Oaks school system for a while, and as far as the elementary piece, they've asked us to come back up there, so we're up there in that capacity. So I will ask the narcotics investigators to try to work with Delaware County to see if there's any way to develop any cases or resolve any drug issues up there, because part of that pilot project, if anyone hasn't talked with you about it, we've teamed with social services and behavioral health, and instead of just trying to repeatedly arrest the same end users, if they are at that piece of it where they're not really selling large quantities or stuff, we're trying to step in and make those early referrals into that pilot project so that they can get a family plan, and instead of just ending up in jail and right back out and still using, that they're seeing someone in behavioral health and they're seeing someone in social services, and the whole system we're hoping will reduce recidivism of drug use. So we'll include Oaks because we've included Delaware County as far as the Marshall side within that Mays County pilot project. So I'll get them up in there too.
Good.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Buzzer?
Sharon, you may, what is the status of that Redbud housing? Is it a public-owned facility, tribal-owned facility, or just what is it?
Well, it's on, there's old housing and the new housing. So the really old housing is tribal. The new housing is state.
So Redbud is on state?
Yeah.
Or didn't make any difference with building and checking for that?
Yeah, and Oaks continually has had some issues with trying to get law enforcement, because it should be Delaware County. It's so rural, and they don't have any municipal codes, any of those things. They've tried to contract in so that they could contract in a judge and write some municipal codes, because any incident that occurs in Oaks, if the ticket is written, it goes to Delaware County. So they have no resources to come in, so they've not been able to hire a police officer, and even if they did, they'd have to have a judge to take that to a city judge. And we have worked with them in the past, trying to get them to state to where maybe they could get someone in there to work. If we could have gotten a volunteer to do the municipal court or something like that to help them with that piece, to bring some revenues back in. They're such a poor community, and that's been a big issue for them.
I do know they've hired an attorney now to help them with some of the city issues up there, so if we revive that again, it may push it along a bit further.
And like I said, this is the first time in about 3 or 4 years that we're back in that school system.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments? Thank you, Sharon.
Looking at your agenda, and I know Diane's not here, and you have the GEG on here.
Which Diane? Hammond?
Diane Hammond. When did you come in?
You got to brush up on your business.
She actually got here before me.
So you want to do it, or you want me to? That has continued to be investigated, and they had issued some subpoenas a while back, and we're looking at those records. That has caused some more subpoenas to go out to other areas. So that is still ongoing, and it's still moving, and it's actually moving consistently. It hasn't stalled out. So I just wanted you to know that they have looked at several bundles of records, and it caused to look at some more banks and records. So that's still going on.
Anyone have any questions in regard to the GEG investigative reports? You can only report so much, but
yeah.
Have any questions or comments? Okay, thank you, Sharon. Let's see, Justice Department, the absent Diane.
Actually, there's an absent Justice Department now, but I turned in my report late. I turned it in this morning, so I'll just hit some of the highlights. We just concluded our jury term last week. We had 2 jury trials that went. One lasted 2 days and one was a 1-day trial. We were successful in both of those. The staff worked very hard, long hours in getting ready for jury dockets. We had jurors show up from all over the jurisdiction. Once again, we're very pleased with that. We were very active during the holiday. Lots of the attorneys and staff members volunteered. I got to attend the second day of the State of Sequoia Conference, which was very enjoyable. One of the not really legal related, but community service related things that one of our staff attorneys is doing. I'd like to tell you about Sarah Hill. I don't know if any of you have ever met her, had any interaction with her. She's one of our younger attorneys. She was on the debate team in high school in Stigler, and she is helping Sequoia start up their debate team, and has been going weekly, and they've been doing practices, and I think they've got I don't know what you call a scrimmage in a debate team, but anyway, they've got one coming up with a different school, so she's very excited about that. We also have, I attached with my email this morning, another thing that Sarah's done, which is coordinate a second child abuse training here at the Nation. The first one we did last year was the first one that we had ever had at the Nation, the first one I think a tribe had ever got through this Oklahoma Child Abuse Training Program. It's free. It's very intensive multidisciplinary team investigation training. I sent you those so that if you want to pass those out to any law enforcement or prosecutors in your district, please do so. Child support, we're going to get our first big chunk of cases from the state October 1st, so we're gearing up for that. And I think those are the high points. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yes.
On the child support, have you staffed up? How many are you going to have?
I've just got the one attorney right now.
What about your specialists?
Those are we're actually in 2 different groups. Norma Merriman has the specialists, the child care workers, the case workers. She has all that group, and I just have the prosecutors. I know that she was interviewing for the case workers and has done some hiring, but I don't know at what level.
How's that contract going to work? What money will come over from the state to support the payment of the staff?
I think the way it works is I think it's completely federally funded through a grant.
Okay.
So,
but we are getting funding for
we are.
Staffing,
we are
setting up the office, and because I know it used to be a fairly decent amount.
Yes, it's a federal grant, and it not only covered that planning implementation, but actually carries forward through starting up the program.
And where will the office be? Because I've had a lot of folks that's already asked, how do we get out there, who do we see to sign up?
Angel Smith is the prosecutor. She's in my office. Okay. The office space is downtown, and I don't remember where it is exactly. Let me get back to you on that.
Can you get that information?
Sure.
And then I have one other question. Are you Mr. Morton's supervisor?
I am.
I had sent a request through Linda Donaldson's office, and she said it had been assigned to him.
Okay.
And I really need to get something back for the family.
I'll check on it today.
Sure appreciate it.
Ms. Jordan? Mr. Buzzard, then Mr. Hembry.
Yes, Diane, I'm just curious, just a couple of questions. How do you send out notices for your jury, and what's the response from people?
I don't know how many they pick. Lisa Fields, the court administrator, does that, and they come from, it's the registration pool. So you have to be a Cherokee citizen, and it's within the 14 counties. So typically we'll have people from Bonita and Pryor and all over the area.
Do most of them show up, or do you?
No.
You know?
No, not most of them. I think we started out with a pool of 50, and then by the third day, we're down to a pool of about 30. So participation is always an issue.
Todd, did you have a question?
Yes, Madam Attorney General. As you know, our judges are taxed at the current caseload. Now that we're actually getting child support cases in, we do have an idea of how much increase that will be on their workload, and if this will come along maybe the appointment of another judge.
Certainly at some point we will need another judge. Judge Cripps, I think, has been handling them exclusively on his docket, which is stretched into almost a full day now, because we have been taking some in from the state. As the caseload is just going to increase and increase, and with this first batch coming over to be solely prosecuted by us in October, it will continue to grow. That's something the judiciary can but at some point certainly we will need more judges or more time from the judges that we have. Both of our district judges are full-time practicing attorneys.
Any other questions, comments from Ms. Hammonds? Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
The third report is Election Commission, Mrs. Morton. She did hand out a report. There she is. How are you today?
I'm doing good. I forgot my glasses, so I'm going to have to look through these little things. You have the report. Item D, registration of new voters. They have completed about 1,000, and they have about 500 more to complete. But the problem that's ongoing is that they're already getting the cards back, and people who registered to vote have already moved. Yeah, and I thought I would bring that to your attention, that that's one of the problems. And don't get the ladies started, about trying to keep up with where people are. So that, I think in future times, we should figure out some way to get people to send their current addresses. I have kept the documents as we've gone through, and I and Martha Calco have spent several hours putting them in some kind of order. And I thought we might at some time need them for something, so I do have them, Madam Chairman. She had sent a email and wanted us to give some contribution from the Election Commission about our viewpoint on some of these. So I do have that information. And the 2003 election records are still there, and I'm not going to destroy them. I just want you to know that they're there, and when it is deemed necessary to do that, they're still boxed up over there. They usually, after 2 years, destroy them, but those are still there. And of course, the latest election. And that's about it. We have our meeting tonight, and I thought it was so interesting when Wanda sent this fact. She said at the end, 6 p.m. to close out term. So that is our last meeting tonight. Are there any questions?
Questions or comments? Thank you for your service. Did a great job.
Thank you.
Item 4 is Tax Commission, Ms. Wexton.
Are you? I did turn in a report. I think you have it in your packet. Thank you. Unless you have questions, I think the only thing I'll just note, that the motor vehicle revenues have increased about 7.5% compared to this time last year, and revenue taxation is about 10.7% compared to this time last year. So unless you have questions.
Questions or comments for Ms. Webston? If not, thank you for your report. Self-governance, Ms. Hanby.
I also submitted a brief written report, and I can go over that, or if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
Anyone have any questions or comments about the report or of Ms. Hanby? Busy lady, aren't you?
I have been. There are a couple of things I wanted to be sure and point out to you. A couple of announcements. Dr. Charles Grimm, his role is being vacated, and Bob McSwain is going to be the new IHS director. We just received word that the IHS self-governance director, which is referred to as the OTSG, that director position has also been filled, and it's by a lady that went to OU. She's done some work in Oklahoma. She's actually Kiowa, and I'm not sure that I can pronounce her name correctly, but it's Miss Hanky Ortiz, O-R-T-I-Z. And that's just recently been announced today to us. So,
any questions, comments for Ms. Hanby? Yes.
Mr. Grimm is resigned from that position, is that?
Yes, he withdrew his nomination. Yes.
Other questions? Thank you, Vicki. Jamie Hummingbird is in Minnesota, I think, at that national conference. So is there anyone else from gaming that might be here? Guess not. Convocation, Mr. Hembry. Theodore Hembry.
Yes.
You're being beckoned on codification.
With the passage of the 07 budget, Ms. Hammond has a room for an intern. I talked to her this morning. She said she's going to start the interview process or the posting process for that position. That position is going to, one of their main goals is to help organize the materials that we began on codification, and to work hand in hand with a new position created here at the Tribal Council with the Legistar, and kind of mesh those two, because they do go in hand. The documentation of all the resolutions and legislative acts and codification through Legistar is going to be almost a symbiotic circle type deal. So, but with that being said, when the next step is to get that person on board, and the new council.
Do we have a timeline of getting all that in place and getting this?
We think a good chunk of it can be done in the month of October, which has always been our goal. So.
Okay, good.
But it was last October.
Yeah. But and in the October before that too.
Oh yeah.
Yes, it's been an ongoing process.
Comments from Mr. Hembry? Thank you. Sharon gave us GEG, moving their old business, so we'll move on down to new business. There's a resolution authorizing Cherokee Nation to become a member of the National Congress of American Indians. Ms. Hanby. Second. You saw the list of all those people. So do you want to say anything about it? A motion and a second. Now we're in discussion.
Yes, that the The membership dues are $25,000, and it's been part of this legislation that would be shared by the executive and the legislative branch. The chief would be the delegate, with alternates being the council, and then also the administration, representing the administration would be Paula Ragsdale as the senior legislative officer out of the D.C. office, Melanie Knight as Secretary of State, Melissa Gower as the government relations lead, and also Flossie Gertie as the tribal relations officer.
Any further discussion? All in favor of this resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Vicki. Item 9 is it's an act relating to general laws in regard to definitions and general provision of Title 25. Mr. Hember, are you doing that one?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Actually, there are, in your packet, there were 2 acts, but only one on the agenda. I would ask that a motion be made to amend the agenda so you may take action on both acts. Prior to that vote, I would just inform the council that, as you can tell by reading them in your packet, they are ministerial acts, basically changing terms of President of the Council to Speaker of the Council, and the membership of the Codification Board, and bringing in line the forms of our resolution and legislative acts to coincide with our new Constitution.
Entertain a motion. Well, we need to amend to include.
Move to amend.
Have a second.
For the purpose of the other act.
Any discussion or including the second item? All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
These acts were, the sponsor is Chairman Prado, and it was at her behest that I drafted these acts, and as I said, they speak for themselves. They're changing terminology.
Bringing it in line.
Bringing it in line with the 1999 Constitution.
I move for the approval of both acts.
Do I have a second? Second. Moved and second. Any discussion? Mrs. Watts, did you have a question?
Never mind, I was ahead of us. You amended the agenda first, and that was like, it was a proper motion, sorry.
Any further discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign.
By acclamation.
By acclamation. Thank you, Mr. Baker. Let's see. Item 10 was an act amending our community emergency assistance.
Madam Chair, I'd like to withdraw it at this time. There's another piece of legislation coming forward next month that will be more inclusive and include this.
All right, so withdraw item 10. Item 11 is amendment to the rules of procedure governing tribal council. Mr. Embry.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. In your packet, there is the, you will have a rules of procedure governing the Cherokee Nation Tribal Council. It will have 81507 on it, which is the last revisions. Again, these are designed to bring in changes that are required through the 1999 Constitution, and also the previous legislative act of merging the 2 committees into executive finance and education, or education and health. But with that being said, the changes will be stated out there with either strike-throughs or underlines. And going through it yet again, there are some changes that you may consider, but at this point I would just entertain any questions that you have.
Mr. Baker? Oh, I'm sorry. Motion and a second now. Discussion, Mr. Baker?
Yeah, the tone on page 5 under voting, no counselor to cast a vote on any legislation unless he or she is seated in the council chambers during the vote call. we've mentioned it before that, we may try to do some kind of teleconferencing for especially our California delegates and such as that. Would that be better changed all at one time later and just leave this like it is, or?
I would recommend that be covered in the legislative act instead of just in your rules of procedure. This section did at one point have provisions for a proxy, but that was ruled unconstitutional. Obviously, as this council grows and develops, and with the addition of the at-large, it is definitely foreseeable that there's going to be a need of some type of electronic participation in the council. I would recommend that be done by legislative act, so the chief could either sign it or veto it. If there was any constitutional challenge, it could be made that way, through a citizen or a council member doing it that way. But it is something that's going to need to be addressed.
Can I answer your question?
I did.
Yeah, Mr. Baker?
Yes,
Yeah.
one on page 3 for the sergeant at arms, assuming that the scrivener's error that should be item B.
Yeah, actually wrote it in here. That there are a couple of things that I was going to go over.
Okay. Also, there's nothing in procedures that shows how to appoint the sergeant at arms. And I would like to move that it be the marshal of the Cherokee Nation or his or her designee.
I accept.
We can change that in the new subsection D 3. It says the sergeant of arms shall be a member of the Cherokee Nation Marshal Service. We can change that to the sergeant of arms shall be the marshal of or her designee.
Right.
Yes, but the designee still should be a marshal.
Yeah.
Got that, Mr. Hembry?
Yes.
We have a motion and a second. Any other discussion?
Yes.
No, Mr. Baker.
On,
Oh, wait just a moment.
Second.
She said you didn't get a second on the sergeant at arms? Yeah. And you seconded that?
But they accepted
We
it.
did
It
the
was a
friendly
friendly
amendment,
amendment.
and we accepted it.
Okay.
accepted as a friendly amendment.
Get that? Okay, Mr. Baker, continue.
Top of page 9, second line, I'm assuming it's another scrivener's error that appears to then divide should be debate time rather than
That time. Might be debt time times total. Debate. Scrivener's error. Any other questions, comments? Is that all?
That's all.
All in favor of accepting these as amended signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Item 12 is approval of the computer usage policy. You and Doug worked on that, right?
That is correct, Madam Chairman. Before you is a computer use policy. We took what the administration had for their employees, although it would not fit, it's almost like a square peg for a round hole. And our goal was to make it a round peg for a round hole. And we believe we've done that. It is self-explanatory. Basically, the policy is don't do anything illegal on your computer. And be mindful that there could be, whatever you put on this computer is property of the Cherokee Nation's people. And through appropriate action may become discoverable. So with this new and useful and valuable piece of equipment comes responsibility. And this policy is designed for you all to be mindful of that.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion, Mr. Hoskin?
Yeah. Is the idea that, for example, our work product on these computer systems is discoverable, maybe even discoverable by the executive branch, discoverable through some sort of a freedom of information, is that consistent with, if you are aware of other legislative bodies? I mean, is there some concern that if we're going to use these for our work product while we're in development, that some way might infringe on our constitutional independence to have that disclosable in the midst of developing legislation?
I did check with the Oklahoma House of Representatives about their computer use policy, which was probably more vague than what you had before you. One of the reasons why we couldn't just adopt the employee policy is that the employee policy, everything is discoverable at someone's whim, basically. They can come in and read your emails, read your work product, no matter what, because you have no expectation of privacy on your computer as an employee. The legislative branch is different. You can expect that some of your product, work product that you're going to be doing, should be protected in some way, and that's why that the way that any information is discoverable is through court order. So if someone is going to need to bring an action through the Freedom of Information Act and actually get a subpoena to actually access your computer. But be that as it may, the whole goal is that you're going to have some privacy, but always be mindful that at some point a court could order inspection of the computer or hard drive or database.
Just because you don't have one.
Thank you.
Are these rules that you're asking us to pass, are they consistent with how the executive branch must operate with their computers?
The executive branch operates with their computers. Any employee of the executive branch is going to have to comply with the policy, the computer use policy that they have intact, which basically is open inspection of any laptop by the executive themselves or through citizens through the Freedom of Information Act. I would say if I had to compare the two, that this policy grants you more protection than the policy over there.
What sort of policy does the judicial branch have?
I'm not aware that they have a policy.
Mr. Baker has a good question here. Tom.
Yeah, and it doesn't relate to me because I am not an attorney. But we do have attorneys sitting at the table, and I assume from time to time they're going to be called upon to do pro bono for tribal citizens, and if they have that work product on their computer, would that not be a nuance to this law or not?
You would need to have a, well, here, I would refer to you to Section E, okay, which is security. All computer equipment assigned to tribal council members is the property of the Cherokee Nation and may be subject to inspection by court order, okay? So this is going to allow someone that says, I want to see Mr. Hoskins' computer. He's going to have to go through, he or she is going to have to go to the court and going to have to do a justification of why that is. What would be the legitimate purpose to see that computer? Mr. Hoskins then at that time would have a right to say, here is the information that should be available to any Cherokee citizen. This part, however, is attorney-client privileged information that should not be disclosed. And it would be up to a court to decide whether to let all the information in, some of the information with a protective order, or none of it.
Okay.
Ms. Conwell.
Thank you. From my perspective, I felt like it was important to put this on the table because even if we don't pass it and people choose not to, we are still subject to this. And it is more of a reminder, we're still subject to the court systems and the Freedom of Information Act and the implementation of that and a challenge of that. So to me, this is more of a reminder to how we should behave because this is new equipment, new tools to us. And there is expectations on how you use the Cherokee Nation asset. That's all. Thank you, Madam Chair.
And Dr. Cobb?
In your legal opinion, if we did not pass this and it was pushed into a court of law, is it your opinion that we would be viewed as Cherokee Nation employees and be subject to that anyway?
By all means. I mean, and I think that's why it's important to have a more restrictive policy, because if you leave it alone, you just leave it out there, well, one would assume that, well, you're going to be subject to the current Cherokee Nation employee policy, which pretty much allows for no protection whatsoever, especially from the IT resources over there that literally can monitor any email that goes through, can log on to computers and read their database hard drives. That shouldn't be the same for the council. The council should have some expectation of privacy, but also be reminded that it is information, this is a piece of equipment that belongs to Cherokee people, and anything on there may be able to be discovered through a court order.
Mr. Hoskin, did you have a question?
No.
Oh, he just read.
Straight in.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you for working on this, Todd. Appreciate it. All in favor of approving this computer usage policy? Did we have a motion? Yes. Signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Under announcement, while it's still fairly fresh on our minds, I'd like to see us form an election law analysis and reform of the election laws, a subcommittee off of rules to study our election laws and see if we can't reform them to better serve our election purposes. And anybody that would like to serve on that, I'd appreciate your help. Mr. Anglin?
I'll be there.
Mr. Baker?
The younger Mr. Baker.
Much younger.
And the older.
Alan Watts.
Ms. Fulbright? Jordan? Mr. Hall? Count everybody?
Too much, doesn't it?
I should have said you had your hand up, Mr. Baker?
Yes.
Okay. Who else? Mr. Hoskin? And I have 10. England, Baker, Fulbright, Jordan, 8, 9, 10. With those that are interested, please raise your hand again. Make sure. I have one more than she has.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Oh, I didn't get to it. Okay. 2. The bitty girl. And I'll have Gail to send you a notice of when we'll have our first meeting. And does everyone have a copy of the election law so she doesn't have to reprint it? Anyone that doesn't have a copy? Wow, they're doing good, aren't they? Yeah. All right, entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Any second? Any discussion? All in favor, aye? All opposed, same sign. 1 hour.
1 hour, that's very good. Madam Chairman, I was just going to make a statement that let's make sure and extend invitations to any members of the executive branch and also any members of the soon-to-be turned-out election commission or their staff.
Thank you.